Well, good hello. This is going to be our video that will describe or explain the details and expectations for our FBA, Functional Behavior Assessment, BIP, Behavior Intervention Plan, and the video presentation. Those three components together will count as your signature assessment for our SPOL 635 course. So I want to make sure that everyone understands exactly what they need to do. So, first of all, I want to start by explaining the difference between our class purposes for the assignment and the real world. So, in the real world, an FBA would never or should never be completed in isolation. It should be completed as part of a team effort. So, you might serve on the team that's working on an FBA for a student and a BIP for a student. You shouldn't be asked to complete the entire thing on your own. What we're doing for our learning purposes in our 8-week class is what I call a pseudo FBA. What do I mean by that? So, what I mean is that what we're conducting or what we're doing will give you a foundational understanding of what an FBA is, what a BIP is, what goes into that process, but you won't be doing the complete process. In the real world, an FBA is what we call an individually administered assessment. What I mean by individually administered assessment is you only give it to those students who need it. You don't automatically give it to every student. So, like your state testing, you don't need parent permission because that's something that's done for every single student. Gen ed, special ed, doesn't matter. It's for all students. And FBA, since it's only given to those students who we feel have a need for it, thus individually administered, we must have parent permission. For our class purposes, we're not getting parent permission because we're not doing a full blown FBA. We're just doing learning pieces of it. So for our class, you will not give me the child's full legal name. You will either give me just their first name or just their last name or their initials or a fictitious name to protect their confidentiality. In an actual school setting or in the real world, you're going to get so tired of hearing me say that. In the real world, there are other pieces that would be done that we're not doing for our class purposes. You would interview the parent and get input from the parent. You would interview the student, if appropriate, and get input from the student. You would send out teacher observation forms to the child's current teachers and possibly even their previous teachers to get their information and to get their input about the child. You would conduct behavior rating scales on the child. We're not doing any of those pieces. What we're doing instead for our learning purposes is you will speak to a teacher, the teacher of that student, to get input on that student, to get background information, to find out about behavioral challenges that they're currently having, perhaps academic challenges that they are or have been having. But we will not be doing those other things. You also will not have access to the students' cumulative records. You will not be able to check on health issues such as vision and hearing screenings. You will not be able to check to find out if there's been a change in medication, if there's been a start to medication, if there is outside therapy going on. Like I said, we're doing just a learning pseudo FBA just so you understand the process, but you're not going to be able to go through all of those other pieces. Like I said, we've got an 8-week class. This is one of many of our assignments, and also the challenge of being able to get parent permission, and also the challenge of being able to get access to all of those other things precludes us from being able to do a full blown FBA. So, what we're doing is like I call a pseudo FBA, just for our learning purposes. There are many different forms based on where you are. I know that UC, of course, is located in Kentucky, but with this being an online school, you could be anywhere learning for this class. In the past, I've used forms from Kentucky. I've also previously used forms from Tennessee since that's where I reside. This time, what I've done is I have kind of pulled from hither, yither, and yon and created a Google Sheets workbook that we'll be using for our purposes. Like I said, the main purpose for this assignment is for you to have a foundational understanding. of what goes into an FBA, what goes into a BIP, what that might look like, and what you might be called upon to be able to do and to be able to speak about. So, with all of that disclaimer information out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. So again, good hello, glad that you're here. This is our video over our FBA BIP for our SPOL635 course. So I've gone ahead and I'm on our iLearn page. I wanted to show you exactly how to find all the information. So I've set mine in student preview mode. So it should look similar to what you see when you log on. That is the goal. So it should look similar to what you see. All right, so I'm going to hit content. And then once I hit content, I'm going to scroll down and I'm looking for the font that's in orange because, of course, everything's color coded because why not? So we're going to scroll down to the orange section, which is the section for the functional behavior assessment. So you see two items here for you. One is the informational folder and one is the Dropbox. All right, so let's start off with the informational folder. Granted, I am making this video, so it will go where this other one is linked. Obviously, that's not going to be the link anymore because we're creating this new video, but that's the placeholder. So it will go there. So obviously, if you're watching the video, that means that you found it. But I'm also going to send you a link. It'll be, well, we'll go over it, of course, in class, but you'll have a link, obviously, to reach this video that you're watching now. But this is where it's located if you need to come back to it without that link. This is how you'll find it. And then the Google Sheets, the worksheets that I was talking about are right here. Below that, you'll see a link to find the rubric. And then there's also resources, just like there were for your week 1 introduction video. There's resources there for how to create your video, just in case you need it. And then just some other miscellaneous information that you're welcome to peruse. Not required, but that you're welcome to peruse. So obviously we're not going to click on the video because if you hear me, you're watching the video. So instead we are going to click on the next thing here. So like I said, we are going to be using a, it says, please use the provided link to access the SPOL635-FBA BIP workbook. You will be prompted to create a copy. When you save your copy, please put your first and last name in the title. You will provide I need to correct this. It says that you're going to provide a link, but you're not. What we're going to do is we are going to create a PDF of your workbook, and I will show you how to do that. And the reason why we need to do the PDF instead of the link is because obviously, just like you can see me as I am presenting to you, I want to be able to see your FBA and BIP as you are presenting it to me. So I want to be able to see you, and I want to be able to see the information. Best practices are when you have an IEP team meeting and everyone is gathered around that table, best practice is that they can see what it is that you're talking about. The teachers that I worked with at the high school, they realized that with working with me that I would not sign an IEP if I couldn't see it. So just because you're talking to me in a meeting, you're choosing what parts it is that you want to tell me about. I want to be able to see it on my own. If I'm going to put my signature on that, I need to be able to see it. Obviously, in a meeting, we're condensing the meeting and we're going through things quickly. Obviously, in an IEP meeting, you have sent out that draft in advance. So parents have already had the opportunity to look through and review that IEP before coming to that meeting. So you're going to give me, you're going to summarize things. You might not read everything word for word for word. But if I'm going to put my signature on it, because an IEP course is a legal document, I want to be able to see it. So best practice is that when you're sitting in that IEP meeting, either you have paper copies for everybody, or if you're on Zoom, then you're displaying it on your Zoom. Or in our conference room, we had a projector and we had a projector screen. And so our teachers could remote in with their laptop and then display it on the screen. Saves a ton of paper. And then you don't have to shred all those copies after the meeting. Yes. So you could display it there. So as we're speaking, everyone in the room can see the exact same thing. So for our purposes, to replicate best practice, I want to be able to see that which you were telling me about. So when you're telling me about the child's FBA, when you're telling me about the child's behavior plan, I want to be able to see it. but I also want to be able to see you because you're presenting it to me. So those are the reasons. Like I said, there's a method to my madness. Those are the reasons why for your first assignment, that week 1 assignment, I wanted you to display that template as I could also see you introducing yourself to the class. All right, so we're going to click on the link here that says FBA BIP workbook, Google Sheet. So once we click on that, this is what you're going to see. Would you like to make a copy? It's your only choice. Your choice is either make a copy or you can't complete the assignment. So when I click on make a copy, if you've ever worked in Google before, wait for it to finish loading. It takes it a second to finish loading. But if you've worked in Google before, you'll see how that works. And it automatically says copy of. You're going to change that to your first and last name, and then a dash for the workbook. All right. And the wonderful thing about Google is it automatically saves. So it's not a matter of the, oh, I forgot to save it and I lost it. Not a problem. Google will automatically save it. Okay. So FBA, of course, stands for Functional Behavior Assessment. For this assignment, which is associated with 3 of your 15 required field hours for our course, you're going to spend an hour before going into the classroom to observe, speaking with the teacher of the student. You want to get background information about the child. Has the child's behavior been an issue ongoing? Is it a new something that's come up? Is it just a certain area that the child is struggling in? So is it just like math? When just like the child that I had for resource reading and resource math, and she was a joy of a student in reading, and in math, the child would literally get under her desk and growl at me. So the question that we want to find out is, when is this behavior occurring? Is there a pattern to it? Do I see patterns of behavior? Is a new onset? So I want to get as much information about that child as I can. All right. So you'll notice here on the Google Sheet for you, it's already formatted and it says insert here, insert here, insert here. So I would start off by where it says insert here. I'm going to change that to Charlie Brown. Obviously, you would give me your own student. Remember, again, to protect the child's confidentiality, you're not giving me that child's full legal name. You could either put Charlie B or C Brown, or like I do, you can use a fictitious name. All right. Grade, I'm going to tell you that Charlie Brown is a 3rd grader. So it's a pull down menu. And I'm going to say if he's in the 3rd grade, then he is probably, let's see, my granddaughter, let me use her age as an example. So I'm going to say he's probably 9 years old, give or take. You'll see here for the date of the FBA, that's the date that you're completing this. So I'm going to double click. The date that I'm making this video happens to be January 25th, 2022. No telling when you might be watching it, because we'll keep the video until I change the assignment again, and then I will change it again. Insert school name here. I'm going to put, I'm going to highlight that and change it. Then I'm going to put the name of my school is going to be Charlie, or no, we're just going to call it Peanuts Elementary School. Peanuts Elementary School. All right. Created by, that is going to be your name. Program eligibility. So when you speak with that teacher, you're going to find out whether or not the child has an IEP, a 504, or is just simply gen ed. And I'm going to select. So you're not even typing it in, you're selecting it. And I'm going to say that this child identified disability or deficit area. I'm going to say OHI, other health impaired. You'll get that information from the teacher. If there isn't a disability area, put NA. NA. Okay. But don't leave it blank. Any place that you see a numbered place is something that you need to fill in. So like I said, you're going to have a conversation with the teacher. In that conversation, you're going to get the summary of that student's historical information. So like on the other ones, you're going to see where it says insert here, and you would insert that information for me. All right. The next area, observation. So all that other information comes from you speaking with the teacher in advance. Observation, this is where you've gone into the classroom now with your notes and you are watching Charlie Brown and you're collecting that data, just like you did for the data collection project, okay? So you're watching that child. You're going to use whatever type of data collection is appropriate, whether it be event, latency, duration, or interval recording, whichever one is most appropriate for the type of behavior that you're observing. But I want you to tell me about the behavior. It says conduct at least one classroom observation of the student in the target environment. So in other words, if the child always has issues in math, don't observe him in recess. Observe him during math. Explain what the target behavior looks like in a way that is observable, measurable, and repeatable. So in other words, don't just say Charlie Brown has an attitude problem. As we talked about in class, I need you to make sure that it's something that is the way that you describe it means that I could pick up this information and I know exactly what it is that I'm looking for as well. So it needs to be described in ways that is observable, measurable, and repeatable. All right. Data. Summarize the data. So in a narrative form, you're going to tell me about what you've collected, what you saw, whether or not, so during this 45-minute observation or during this hour-long observation, XYZ happened. He was out of his seat number amount of times. This, that, in other words. So you're summarizing that information for me of what you saw. The first part tells me what is the target behavior, what's it look like for that child. So don't just say he's physically aggressive. I need to know, was he hitting, screaming, throwing things, spitting, whatever it was that he might have been doing. But down here, you're describing the data. You're saying, I watched him for 45 minutes or for an hour. Of that hour time, he was doing this for this amount of time. 5 minutes into it, he was doing this. So you're describing that for me. Explaining how you used either, like I said, frequency, duration, latency, or interval. So that goes in that section there. Obviously, you would be taking out where it says insert answer here. Reinforcement strategies. So finding out from when you spoke with the teacher initially, what have they done or what things have they tried to reinforce the student? So summarize previous reinforcement strategies, provide suggestions of different types of reinforcement to align with individual motivations. So in other words, if the teacher says that he seems to do well with attention, then you can say that they've tried this, 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 and this. They have not yet tried something that you might suggest. All right. Functional the hypothesis. So again, as we mentioned in class, for our class purposes, we are focused on ABA. So we're not going to say that the function of his behavior is control. We're not going to say the function of his behavior is power. We're not going to say the function of his behavior is ADHD. We're not going to say the function of his behavior is autism. We're looking at, is he looking to gain attention? Is he looking to gain a tangible, which could be a concrete tangible or an object or an activity or an event? Are we saying that he's looking to gain sensory stimulation? I can't talk, sorry. Stimulation. Or the flip side of that coin, are we saying he's looking to escape or avoid attention or interactions with peers? Is he looking to escape an activity such as math class or going to speech or something that he's looking to escape or avoid, an assignment that he doesn't like, having to take a test, having to speak in front of the class? Is he looking to escape or avoid something? Or is he looking to escape or avoid sensory stimulation or an internal stimulation? Could be pain, could be hunger, it could be discomfort. So looking at our ABA, functions of behavior, what do you believe? And you can list up to 2 because there could be a secondary function, or you could believe that there could be a secondary function. So you could list up to 2. And that's it for the FBA. So that's what you were doing. So like I said, in the real world, there would be those other pieces, and you would have interviewed the parent, you would have interviewed the student, you would have collected teacher observation forms, you would have been able to administer behavior rating scales, you would have been able to review historical information such as the student's cumulative folder, looking at any kind of medical concerns and things of that nature. But for our learning purposes, this is all we're doing for the FBA. So you would complete items 1 through 13 in detail here on this Google Sheet workbook that you've created a copy of, renamed with your first and last name. Once you've done that, you'll see down here at the bottom that we're going to click on observation data. So you've collected that data. And just like you did for your data collection project, you're going to insert that data into, and if you want to do it in Excel and then copy and paste it into here, that's fine. Or if you just want to just do it in here, that's fine. And then you are going to create a graph as well. just like you did for your reinforcer survey and for the data collection project. So you're going to have your data and your graph here in this section here. All right. Once you have done that, the next thing that you're going to do, if I can get this to move out of my way, and I would get rid of it, but then I always forget how to stop my video. So sorry. Then we're going to do the BIP. Same thing. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to fill out the information that we have on the screen. As I mentioned in class, so date of current plan, that's the day that you're completing this. Plan to be reviewed. There are those that will say that you can have must be reviewed every 6 to 8 weeks. I believe every 4 to 6. I'm not going to fault you for which one of those two things you choose. The key thing, though, is that this isn't a plan that you write once a year with our annual IEP and don't look at it again to the following year. It's a behavior plan. It has to have ongoing progress monitoring. Think about like you would working with a child to teach them how to read. You wouldn't assess a child in the beginning of the year in August, the beginning of the school year, and then not look at that running record or the DIBELS or the DRA or whatever reading instrument that you use. You wouldn't look at that, leave that assessment alone until the end of the school year in May or until the next school year in August. That wouldn't make sense. It's the same thing here. It's a behavior intervention plan. And the only way for this to work is to work the plan and then evaluate the plan. So you have to have that ongoing progress monitoring. So you're going to include the same, your BIP obviously is for the same student. And let me make that clear, because in the past I've had people who've turned in opposite, and I don't understand why. Because your FBA drives your BIP. So the FBA is assessment, and then the BIP is the plan that you make based on that assessment. So yes, it must be for the same child. So we're going to put in the child's information here. This information comes from the previous page. You are still you, so you are still the one creating it. The school doesn't change. The age, the grade, this child's name, the program eligibility, none of those things change. The identified disability, that stuff is the same. You're putting in the date that you're completing it, and then 4 to 8 weeks from that date is what you need to do here. And again, you're double clicking here, and it is a calendar. So you can scroll through to get to where you want to get to. All right. Same thing here on the date that you're creating it. It's a calendar. All right. So then we're going to come down to the next section, and we're going to list, let me move myself out of the way. We're going to list the maladaptive behavior. So we are looking for what is the behavior? What is it that we see? And I've made it to, it's a menu for you. You can pick. So we're looking at behavior such as lying, cheating, and stealing. Are we looking at where the student's leaving the area where they're supposed to be? Are we looking at behavior that's defiant or disrespectful? Are we looking at inattentive behaviors? So you're just simply going to choose from the list that we have here for you. All right, that's here for you. And then the next step is you're going to say what you believe to be that function of behavior. It's there for you. So it's not autism. It's not ADHD. It's not just mean old kid. It's not just, spoiled. It's either sensory, tangible, attention, or escape. What is it that we're looking at? And then if you believe there to be a secondary one, you would fill this one in. You notice that that's not a separate number because it's if you believe it to be. You're going to delete this information here. And again, you're going to give me that operational definition, what the behavior looks like for that child. Don't just say he has aggressive behaviors. What does that look like for that child? And then what type of data collection you're using. That's also a pull down menu. So you're choosing from the menu that's there for you. Replacement behavior and goals. So we're going to look here and talk about, given this training, given the support, what is it that we're going to provide for the child? What is the replacement behavior? And how well do we want the child to be able to do that? Are we looking at 80% of the time? Are we looking at 4 out of 5? What are we looking at? So using this condition. So if you think about a well-written IEP goal, you always have the condition, and then you have the goal, and then you have the criteria of the how well. So given appropriate, given no more than 3 prompts, Charlie Brown will comply with requests without protesting 4 out of 5 times. So that's what I'm looking for here. We're talking about the condition, the replacement behavior, and the criteria. Potential reinforcers. So what do we think might be a reinforcer for the child. And again, look, I've got something there for you to be able to pull from. So, do we think that consumables, peer approval, adult approval, competitive, or independent rewards would be appropriate for the child? If we're thinking that it's an attention issue, again, are we looking at what it is that we think would be appropriate for the child? That adult approval. Do we think that if he got to be in the head of the line, that would be the type of reinforcer that he would need for that attention? If we're looking at tangible activity, again, what is it that we're thinking would be most appropriate for the kiddo? And so that's all you're doing there. You're basing it on what you believe was your proposed hypothesis. So, based on what you believe is the function of behavior, it's not going to be filled in all of those. That's why there's one number here. For that child, which one do you think is going to be the most appropriate? And then how are you going to provide that reinforcer? If you think it's an attention issue, this is where your answer is going. If you think it's an escape issue, then this is where your answer is going. So you're not filling it in every single blank. If you believe that there's a secondary function of behavior, that's where the second line comes into play. So let me repeat that. You're not filling in every single one of these blocks. Based on what you believe to be the function of behavior, you're going to choose which one and then how you would go about reinforcing that. If you notice that these items that are listed here, those align with the items that were in our reinforcer survey project that you did earlier in our by term. Like I said, there's a method to the madness, and every single one of the assignments leads to the next major assignment. There is a connection. So, intervention strategies. What do you feel would be appropriate strategies for that student? And then who would implement them, and what kind of materials would you need? So that's what you would be filling in here. If we're going to change behavior, we have to make sure that we've taught the child the appropriate behavior. So, what are we going to teach the child? What are we going to teach them to do instead of what they were doing? And then who's going to be responsible for that, and what materials might be needed? So, consequences to reinforce replacement behavior. So, the reinforcement strategy, what are we going to give? Remember, consequences aren't necessarily negative, consequences can be positive. So, consequence strategies to reinforce the replacement behavior. What is the reinforcement strategy? Who's going to implement it? What are the materials that are needed? And then this is consequence strategies to be used when the target behavior occurs. So this is the corrective strategy. So if the goal is for the child to raise their hand and wait to be called on without calling out, what do we do when they don't wait? What do we do when they're still calling out? So what is the corrective strategy? What do we do to bring about that change? And that's what goes here. So this other section was, what reinforcement are we providing when they're doing what we've asked them to do, when they're meeting that expectation? And then the second one, the corrective strategy, is what are we doing when they're not meeting that explanation or that expectation? Sorry, when they're not meeting that expectation. Is a safety plan necessary? There's a pull down here, yes or no. And then enter details below. So you're not going to leave it blank. You're either going to write no safety plan is needed, or you're going to describe for me what would that safety plan be. In week 3, there is a discussion board referencing an article called Thinking the Unthinkable. In that article, it talks about the mother's safety plan that she had to teach her other children of when their older brother was, I guess you could say, out of control. When he became aggressive, the children were supposed to run to the car and lock themselves in the car. What is the safety plan that we're talking about in the classroom? Obviously, we aren't going to have our children leaving class and running to a car, but what is that crisis plan? What do we do for Charlie Brown when he's not able to control himself? When he is not able to, so in other words, instead of him being in control of his behavior, if his behavior is in control of him, what is our plan? When he becomes aggressive to the point that he's a danger to himself or to somebody else, what is our plan? If he's an issue with eloping and he walks out of the classroom, what is our plan? If he is banging his head on the wall because he's frustrated, what is our plan? So what is that safety and crisis plan in order to make sure that we're keeping that child and other children safe? The last part is making sure that we understand that this is a plan that is discussed at an IEP meeting and that it is agreed upon by the IEP team. So here I've got listed for you the people who need to be involved at a minimum: the student, if appropriate, the parent or guardian or plural, the general ed teacher, and then also the case manager, which is usually the special ed teacher. If we're talking about using this with a 504, the case manager might be the school counselor. It all depends. And then you have to have what we call an LEA rep, which is your local education agency representation, and that's usually an administrator. So again, you don't have to give me their legal names. The student name should be the same that's on the BIP. The parent or guardian should be Mrs. Charlie Brown or Mrs. Brown, or whoever it is that we're talking about. You would either be so you're going to enter the teacher that you interviewed. I want you to list that teacher's name here where it says teacher, and then you would enter your name where it says case manager, because you're the one creating the FBA and the BIP. And then local education agency lists the name of the principal who signed your principal permission placement form that you submitted for me. Use that same principal's name. All right. And you can just list their Mr. whatever, or first initial and last name. And then, so once this is completed, once you have completed all of this and you have all three, you're probably saying, all right, now what? What do I do with this? How do I submit it? So the wonderful thing about Google is that it's free. The other wonderful thing about it is that I can take this Google Sheet and I can download it as a PDF, which is what we're going to do. Let me move myself out of the way again because I want to show you something. Please, 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 make sure that you take the time. Don't do this by one sheet at a time. You're going to click right here on this arrow, and you're going to click on where it says workbook. So you notice that just changed from 1 page to 6 pages, right? So when I had it on current sheet, it says up here at the top that a total is 1 page. But then that means I'd have a PDF for the FBA, I'd have a PDF for the data page, I'd have a PDF for the BIP. We're not going there. Instead, we're going to change this. One little click turns it into a workbook. So once we hit workbook, and then I can export it, and it's going to ask me where I want to save it. For my purposes, I'm going to save it on my desktop. You notice it took the name that I had already changed here, where I changed the word copy to my name in front of the FBA BIP. So I'm going to save it on my desktop. It is going to download for me, and then I would be able to open it. Hold on just a second. My video disappeared. So let me find myself. Yay, I'm back. So mine opened it in another Chrome tab. But for our purposes, to make sure that I can still be seen as I'm presenting to you, I'm going to instead have it for you over here on my Adobe Acrobat. All right, so, oh, sugar berries. Hold on just a second. Always more than one way to make something work. So instead, what I've done here is I have opened it up. I'm trying to make it do what I want it to do because it doesn't want to. So I'm trying to make it do what I want it to do. And we shall. So you'll see here now that it's in a PDF. So let me go ahead and download this to Acrobat, and that should make things easier. So if I download this to Acrobat, let's see, I shouldn't have to download it. Let me just go ahead and go back to my screen here on the front. And it should have saved it for me. The problem is I'm trying not to lose what I've got open here. So hold on just a second. Here we go. Give me a second while I move myself around. If I wasn't trying to teach you and show you all these other things, I wouldn't have to do that. But where I'm trying to show you and make sure that you can see me, I sure hope this works. Make sure that you can see me, then I'm having to move that screen. Move that screen, move that screen. Here we go. But obviously, when you present it for me, you'll only be using the one screen. You'll only be using your PDF. You won't be navigating from one screen to the other screen to the other screen in order to make the video, because you would have already completed all the work. So as you can see here, this is downloaded into a PDF of 6 pages. Now, granted, as I was explaining it, I didn't fill out every little thing. Yours would be, though. And see here, your data would be on that page. And then it goes on into the behavior intervention plan. Ah, that's why it's 6 pages, because that one page it scooted over. I will try to fix that. It's probably because of the length of the information that's in there. So we'll work on that. Let me see if I can make that work. So, but regardless, I'll try to fix that part. But even if I don't, you can still see how that works, even if I can't get that to work. Formatting is a pain. But so this way you can see now that, and I'm wondering, give me just 1 second, you guys. I'm wondering if I had downloaded it as a PDF, was there an option for me to adjust the spacing? So I wonder if I had changed this to maybe 60%. We're going to try this real quick. So if I adjust my spacing and I change that to 60%, I export it. I'm going to change this to, just that way I know which one I'm opening. X for export. I'm saving it on my desktop. And then let me see. Here we go. This is that file. I'm checking to see if it fixed it now. Yes. So you saw what I did there, you guys. I changed the ratio from when I downloaded it. So when I downloaded it this second time, so please go ahead and do that. It fixed the spacing. So when I downloaded it as a PDF that time, remember to go workbook and then make that 60%. And if you do that, then it's going to fit when you open it. So that way it's not doing something weird with my pages and splitting that last column. All right. So you can still see me as I'm presenting. All right. And now you can also see my behavior, my FBA and BIP. Like I said, for you, it won't be this much navigation, but where I'm trying to explain it to you, I'm switching, like I said, from Google Drive, from our iLearn page to the my desktop, back to my Adobe. So that's why there's so much navigation for you, or for me. You should not have that issue because you will have already done all the work, and then you'll have your PDF open and then your video. That's it. All right. So here I would be talking about my FBA. I would be presenting this information to you as I am visible on the screen, so you can see me presenting that information to you. So like I said, it would have been all filled out. You would have completed all of that and everything would have been there. All right. Let me show you our rubric. So first, let me show you where the rubric is. So on our iLearn page, right here, right below the link to the Google Sheet, you'll also see the link to the rubric. Also, there is a rubrics folder on our content page. If I click here where it says content, and I can go to the folder that says rubrics, and it's in purple because, of course. And here you have the rubric for the classroom management plan, the reinforcer survey, the data collection project, and the FBA video presentation. So it's located there for you as well. All right, back to our rubric. So let me go over this for you, and then we can say good night, or good morning, or good afternoon, or goodbye, because we already said good hello. So it'll be goodbye. All right, so This is a rubric for your FBA, BIP, and video presentation all together in one rubric because it's your signature assessment worth 150 points. All right. You'll use the Google Sheet workbook that I just showed you and demonstrated for you to complete your FBA and BIP. The link, obviously, is provided on iLearn. I showed you where that was. I've already explained that in a typical situation, you would present your FBA and BIP in an IEP team meeting. I am your IEP team meeting. So you're going to present for me in a recorded video. Your video needs to be 5 to 10 minutes. This is longer because I'm explaining and I'm navigating. All right. I explained to you what an FBA was. I explained to you the difference between our learning FBA BIP and a real world FBA BIP. So this has been much longer than 5 to 10 minutes. You're going to just simply present for me your PDF of your FBA and BIP. 5 to 10 minutes. Why? Because there's a whole lot of you guys. And so if everybody's video was half an hour long, I would need an extra 3 weeks to be able to get your grades done. Not going to happen. So 5 to 10 minutes. And you might be thinking, that's not realistic. Again, like I said, you're not doing a full-blown FBA. Also, think about it in terms of, in the real world, our class periods are usually 45 minutes long at the high school level. And so in that 45 minutes, we've got to be able to pull the teacher that's on planning and have a meeting. We do not have the luxury of having a meeting that can last for an indefinite amount of time. So this is also an exercise in that time management, being a good steward of the time that we have, because we all have a very limited amount of time. So in that 5 to 10 minutes, you're going over that information. Remember that you would have already presented your draft to your parents in advance, but 5 to 10 minutes should be enough time for you to be able to present your FBA and BIP to me. Because like I said, you're just going over the information I didn't give you. You're not discussing rating scales. You're not discussing all of the back cumulative information because you don't have access to that. You're not going over all of the other teachers' observations. You're not going over the parent interview, the student interview. We're just going over the pieces that we have for our learning purposes. So 5 to 10 minutes, no mas, 5 to 10 minutes. All right. I'm going to deduct points if it's less than 5 minutes. I'm going to deduct points if it's more than 10 minutes. All right. You're going to upload a link to your video in the comment section of the Dropbox. So we have a Dropbox for the FBA and BIP. Let me show you where that is. So if I go back to content over here, and remember when I talked about you're scrolling down till you see the orange? So this is where we clicked a moment ago, was on the information folder. Right below it is the Dropbox. And that Dropbox has this information in it. It tells you that it's 100 points for your FBA, your observation data, and your BIP, and 50 points for your presentation. The link is there for you also to the Google Sheets workbook. Talks again about in the typical situation you would do, yada, yada, yada. So the same information from our rubric is repeated on that Dropbox. You would click on that Dropbox, and in that Dropbox, there's also a link to the rubric there. Like you guys know, I'm a little bit OCD. So the link to the rubric is located in the Dropbox as well. But in that Dropbox, you will upload that PDF. Remember, the PDF is a combined of the 3 tabs, not 3 sheets individually, all 3 sheets combined together. So you're downloading the workbook as a PDF, as I just showed you. You will upload that PDF, and then you'll upload the link to your video. Please, 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 please double check your link to your video. Double check your video before you post it. Ask a friend to check it. Ask a friend to watch it. Ask your neighbor who you don't even like. Take them, a nice cornbread and say, hey, neighbor, watch my video. But just make sure that someone else can access it, not on your same machine. Make sure that it doesn't ask for permission, and make sure that you are visible while the PDF is visible. All right. Double check those things. That's like proofreading your paper. Double check to make sure that video works. All right. So let me go back to the rubric now. So for your rubric, like I said, you're going to post the link. Make sure that it doesn't require permission to be able to access it. And then you're uploading also, like I said, the PDF of the 3 sheets or 3 tabs combined. There are 13 items on the FBA page, 2 points each. So that's a possible 0 to 26 points for the FBA. Your data and your graph is a possible 10 points. Your BIP is numbers 14 through 45. So that's a possible 64 points, 2 points for each item. And then we get into your presentation. So I already explained to you the worksheet, so that's why I went through that part quickly. So for your presentation, you're going to discuss, you're going to intro your tell me a little bit about the kiddo. You're going to tell me basically the information you gathered from the teacher. What are the child's strengths? What are the areas where they shine? Where are the areas where they struggle? What are the behaviors, the situations where behaviors are worse? Who's the important individuals in his life? Who is his support system? So you're giving me information about that child. And then you're going to tell me about correctly identify the function of behaviors, provide the suggestions or strategies to help lessen that undesirable behaviors, discuss a plan for how you would communicate the behavior plan and the student's progress with the other staff members. So when we come back together in 4 weeks, I'm going to have for you a graph that we're going to show how many times the behaviors occurred. We're going to be collecting that data every week, once a week, or every single day in math class. How are you going to collect that data? How are you going to communicate it? What is your plan? All right. And what are you doing to support that child? What are you doing to intervene on their behalf? And then the presentation of your data. Like I said, how will you collect it? How will you know if the plan is working? What are you going to be looking for? So what is it that when you're looking at that data, what is it that you're looking for? The delivery of your presentation. You need to maintain the audience's attention. Don't be Ferris Bueller's teacher. Don't be that guy. So don't be Ferris Bueller's teacher. Maintain the audience's attention. Yes, I am the whole audience. Maintain my attention. Speak professionally, clearly, and concisely communicate the information in a logical order. So follow along as you're presenting. Don't jump back and forth from one place to the other. And then their presentation expectations. I must be able to see you as you're presenting for me. And I must be able to see that PDF of your FBA and BIP and your data as you're discussing for me. Don't create a new PowerPoint. I want to see the PDF that you're uploading in our iLearn Dropbox. And then remember, 5 to 10 minutes, no less than 5, no more than 10. And like I said, it's worth a total of 150 possible points. So that is our signature assessment in a nutshell. Kind of a long one, but like I said, I was navigating through everything. We navigated the waters together, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. So this is the video for your signature assessment. Again, remember, it's worth a possible 150 points, which is a big deal. So please make sure that you review the video, that you review the rubric, and that you follow all the steps, and that you do the things that you need to do. If you have questions that were not answered in this video, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll be more than glad to go over whatever information I neglected to put in here. Again, remember that our FBA BIP is a pseudo FBA BIP for our learning purposes. It is not a full-blown FBA. So don't go back to work and tell your principal, you're doing it wrong. Like I said, we're doing a shortened version just for learning purposes. So hopefully this has answered all of your questions. You understand exactly what you need to do. You understand where to find the information, how to find the resources that you need in order to be successful with this assignment. Again, thank you guys for your time, for your attention, and for all that you've done this semester. Take care. God bless, and I'll see you in class. Good night, everybody, or good morning, or good afternoon, or just simply goodbye.